All right, and we're live. I think we're always at that awkward in-between stage where the chat hasn't caught up with it yet, so we don't know if we're actually live and people can hear us, but I always like to assume that it worked okay. So everyone, it's the Drinker here, and I'm here for happy hour number 27, where we're going to be talking about the Disney movie Moana. And damn, this is a pairing that I never expected to be discussing a movie like this. I'm joined tonight by Sargon of Akkad himself. And thank you very much for coming on the stream tonight, man. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Like I've said this many a time, but I watch your videos all the time, so I'm really thrilled to be talking to you. To be honest, especially about a film like this, I know that this is a kind of unusual choice that you probably wouldn't have expected from me, but I love this film and I really want to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. When we were discussing possibilities to review, I expected some hard-hitting political drama or some medieval epic from you. Your suggestion, and then you came out with Moana, and my first thought was like, "Damn, Sargon's lost his mind." But then, yeah, you said, give it a chance, and I think there's some interesting things to discuss. And so I'd never seen it before, so I went and watched it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good film, a good. Honest, sort of old-fashioned almost movie that has a nice moral message to it, and it was an interesting one to look at. So I think it was actually a good suggestion, man. What's if you don't mind me asking for the people in chat, like what made you think of it?
Honestly, I don't really know. Like, it was the fact that my kids watch it fairly often, I guess, which is good because they've got a Disney streaming service. But it's been one of those films that I've wanted to do like a video breakdown on or something at some point, because there are loads of small things in it that I think add up to make it kind of an enchanting story in a lot of ways. And like, it's got a bunch of features that are heavily politicized now that are done in a really good way. And I find it interesting how, like, sorry to talk about anything political, but sort of like, woman of color, strong female protagonist and all that. It has all of these things, and it's not like, she doesn't have like a romantic relationship or anything. So it's like, right, this should be a great feminist film, but you never hear like, anyone talking about it. And it's a real shame because it's a really great film. And so I thought it'd be worth bringing some attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that did kind of jump out to me about this film is like they do a good job of building up Moana as a character. They actually put her through a lot of struggles and difficulties, and she has to rise to the challenge, and she fails on occasion, and she needs help, and she needs a bit of coaching to make herself stronger and better over the course of the movie. And it's almost like that's a forgotten art, the idea that you can develop characters and put them through struggles to make them better people by the end. It's something that you definitely miss out on a lot of films nowadays that try to do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of The Last Jedi like everyone else. Like, is Moana a Mary Sue, is the question. And the answer is no. She fails at loads of stuff. Like when Maui traps her in the cave and she has to climb out, and she tries to jump onto the boat and just splashes straight into the water, and then hair whips in her face, and she's the butt of the joke. And it's like, oh my god, a woman's allowed to be the butt of the joke. But the thing is, it adds to her character, the fact that she has to overcome these things, and it's never cast into doubt. And she's not a Mary Sue, she has to learn things as she goes, and you see her learning things. So, right, okay, this is a great character, female, male, doesn't matter. This would be a good character no matter the characteristics. And that's, I think, one of the most important parts about it. It's a really great example to young ladies, to be honest, of what to be like in your personality, frankly. And feminists are like, we're never going to talk about this. Sorry, that's gone. So, never mind.
Yeah. It's the same when she's she's trying to leave her island for the first time, and she has to get beyond the reef, which is at the perimeter of their island, and the waves crash over it, which makes it a very difficult passage to make. And the first time she attempts it, her boat gets wrecked and she's washed ashore. She almost drowns. Again, it's a sign of failure because she wasn't ready for that kind of challenge yet. And it's just, she has to learn from that. She has to get advice from her elders. And become a stronger, more capable person. And it's a theme that's carried on throughout the film. And I think it's interesting as well because you get the character of Maui, who is a demigod, and he's not a romantic interest, but he's almost like a male sidekick for her. But he has his own like pretty interesting character arc in the movie, But the movie never belittles him, and it never makes him useless in comparison to Moana. They're very much a team, and they have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they learn things from each other over the course of the film. So again, it's good old-fashioned character development that just it never gets done nowadays, and it's so nice to see a Disney movie that's relatively new that actually bothers to do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things about Maui is that he doesn't overshadow Moana. Because you'd think, okay, well, he's a demigod. I mean, he's going to be able to do everything that she can't do. But incidentally, it's not. And in the end, he comes back to save her. But Disney movie, obviously. But she has to overcome the challenges, and he's one of the challenges she has to overcome. He's a pain in the ass. He's constantly either getting in the way or disappointing her or trying to get rid of her. So it's it's a very interesting, and because there's absolutely no romantic interest or relationship between them, because Maui isn't a human and she's on a mission, it means that they have to talk about something other than being male or female. And so what they're talking about is their place in the story and the grand narrative. You're going to restore the heart of Te Fiti and I'm going to sail you there. So, okay, great. We've got a really good motivation, a reason that Maui is kind of forced into the journey, and, why they have to work together. And it's well, this is really decent. I can't believe it. Disney in 2016. Where did this go?
I know. But how much more likable does the character become, of Moana, because of this stuff that she has to do? She's got an actual personality. And when you see her fail, you want her to pick herself up and try again and succeed. It's not hard to create a likable female protagonist, but it's so many companies are afraid to do it because they don't want to show them fail at anything. And the result is you don't like them then because there's nothing challenges them.
Yeah, and at no point is Moana a stuck-up brat. Yeah, and that's, I think, just a good positive trait in a character you want me to like, male or female, doesn't matter who they are. At no point is she prissy or entitled or and she doesn't get everything too easily or anything like this. And so you end up really empathizing with the position she's in, because she's if you start at the beginning with her place as the chieftain's daughter, so the princess, and the sort of oppressive nature of the expectations that are placed on her from a very young age, I can see you can very easily empathize with the desire to go and explore the unknown, right? Because she's oh God, everything's all on me and my entire life plan is basically plotted out, and she wants a heroic adventure to go on, and thankfully the story provides her with one, because all the animals and the fish are dying, and they can't eat the coconuts and things like this, so they have to go and restore the heart of Te Fiti. But there's a sort of duality to the island and the home life that I think is actually really interesting, and something that maybe millennials want to start thinking about. Because one of the things about millennials that people seem to notice is they're very nihilistic, so they don't have a purpose, and that's awful. I think it's actually kind of awful for people to wake up every day and go, look, there's just no reason why I'm here, and I may as well just die tomorrow, because, what difference does it make? The universe is a cold, empty place and no one cares. That's a horrible, horrible position to be in. And so what Moana actually does is kind of answer that question in the village that the islanders live on. And you hear it in the first song, where it's talking about the island gives them everything they need, and they find meaning in the communities and the relations between the people on the island. And Moana has her place, a proper place for her on the island as the daughter of the chieftain, and everyone's she's doing a great job, she's really good, she's working really hard, and so it's very homely. It's very homely. It feels very wholesome. But at the same time, you could see from the perspective of a 15-year-old girl, be oh, look, I want to go and explore the world. I want to get out and do something. So you can feel not only the sort of warmth of it, but also the sort of oppressive nature of it that's always around her. And it gives the character a really good and understandable, relatable motivation to get out and go on the quest. So none of it feels artificial or forced, but it's also one of those. So I think you could relate that back to sort of young people now, where they're they might be in some quite rural area or in a small town or something like that. And so everyone knows each other, and there's an expectation that they might join their father's business or parents' business or whatever it is. And they want to go to a big city, they want to get out and explore the world. And it's yeah, you can, and you probably will, but the aim isn't to forever spend your life on the adventure. The aim is to eventually come back with the skills that you learn and put them to use for the service of the people that you love. And that's basically what Moana essentially learns throughout the film. I just think that's really wholesome.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a trope in Disney movies, particularly when you've got princesses, where it's the yearning for adventure. And the yearning to broaden their horizons. If you look at like a lot of these older films, like Princess Jasmine from Aladdin, she is the daughter of a sultan, and by any standard or measure, she's got this lovely, comfortable life where she's going to be living in a palace and waited on hand and foot. But she yearns to get out into the world and see more of the real world than just what she's been trapped in, the gilded cage kind of problem. And it's the same with I don't know, Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Again, she lives in this little village in France, and she even has a song about how every day is just the same, and they just go through the same routine. And like, she wants to see more, she wants to learn more, and that's a trait that you see in a lot of Disney movies. The princess who wants to escape her existence and move somewhere else to find more adventure in the world. And you establish that with Moana in a very real sense because she's trapped on an island. And as you say, the customs that they have, all their culture is based around, we have to stay here, it's safe, we don't venture beyond the reef because it's dangerous out there. This is our existence. And not many people question that, or they don't seem to. But Moana keeps fighting against it, and she wants to escape. So on the one hand, she wants to do it anyway, but events of the film kind of conspire to make it an essential thing that she has to do later.
Yeah, but I think what's interesting about Moana is the love of the village life is still a part of the character. At no point does she start like hating or resenting the village. She's just got this other impulse to go out and explore. And I just think that's very, because I think that there's a great deal of resentment, or like, I don't know how to describe it, like kind of looking down upon the idea of like small town life from people who, when they're young, move to big cities. And I think that's kind of misplaced, because I think that the real quality of life is in human relationships, if you think about it. And like the people who are living in these small towns don't fall into nihilistic patterns where they think life is meaningless, because they find meaning in the relations, in the relationships they have with just, the other people in their area. And these become sort of textured. You know what the guy who delivers the mail is like. If he delivers your mail every day for 20 years, you talk to him, learn about his problems and his interesting, foibles, and the whole area around you builds up a kind of human overlay, sort of a texture upon it, in which you are familiar with those people and what's going to happen. And so it gives the area that you're in a kind of sense of reality that a stranger can't get. And then it becomes a special particular thing to that place. And that is something that I think it comes out in Moana and is respected. Whereas I think a lot of young people tend to move to a city, adopt a kind of different way of viewing the world, and forget that this kind of texture that people put on the world around them in these small towns is nice. And it's good, and it makes it reassuring and lovable and comfortable, and I don't know why I'm going this way with this, but it's just always something that's been in my mind about it. And I don't feel I've adequately been able to say it before for some reason.
No. For me, I think people find meaning in responsibility because that gives you a purpose. So like for most people, you spend your teens and your 20s partying and having fun, and that's great. But like eventually most people are going to settle down. They're going to have like a job, they have a house, they have a family. And these are all things that become responsibilities that you have to maintain, you have to work on. But it gives your life a meaning because you're fighting for them. And that's I guess what you can end up missing out on if you don't do any of that stuff. If you're still in your 30s and 40s and you don't have anyone around you that kind of need you, if you're living in a rented apartment, you don't have kids, a wife, anything like that, what are you responsible for? What's your meaning? What do you do day to day? You're just literally living for the next, next paycheck to spend it on stuff that you don't really need. I think that's where probably a lot of people, I guess, now can fall into that trap. Everything just ends up becoming very meaningless because there's no one who depends on you, and there's no reward for anything you do.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think this is why a lot of millennials tend to fall into ideology, because I think it gives them a shared sense of community and like, oh, we're all fighting for a thing, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe, but there are actual real things rather than abstracts to talk about. Real tangible things back in the place that you came from with people who really do actually need your help, and you could fight for an abstract cause that nobody else is really going to recognize unless you become incredibly famous, like a Greta Thunberg or something, or you could become like a local hero in a local area, which I think is nice. And I think it's more achievable for most people as well. But anyway, let's go back to the movie. I'm kind of getting off topic, aren't I?
Oh yeah, we're talking about Moana, aren't we?
So yeah, okay. So like one of the things I absolutely adore about this film, and it's consistent through the whole way through. The graphics, it's entirely animated. It's a beautiful movie, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely stood out for me. Like, the water effects, like the animation is incredible throughout the film. Like the water effects look great. Like when characters get their hair wet and they're moving their heads around and their hair's flying around, it looks just photorealistic. It's brilliant. The amount of work that's gone into all of that. And these kind of CGI effects have gotten to the point where they're great. Obviously they're cartoonish. They're in that middle ground between like looking super realistic and looking just hand drawn, but they work perfect for what they are. And like the movie visually looks fantastic. And the characters all just look likable in their own way. Like Maui looks great. He's got the big muscle stuff, but he's got the kind of he's a big sort of big lad, with all his tattoos and everything. Moana looks great. Like they've got a lot of personality to them. So yeah, I think it's a great movie to look at. Just for people watching in chat as well. Like I know that obviously super chats will come in as we're chatting here. We tend to leave them just more towards the end, so we don't keep stopping and starting. But everything that comes through will get addressed. Don't worry. But yeah, for people who haven't seen the film, just the general setup is that you get a little prologue where the sort of goddess of the islands, or the goddess of the sea. What's her name again? I can't remember.
Hang on, let me just. I'm terrible with foreign names. Let me get it up.
Yeah.
Right. So the goddess, is it Tekar? Tekar.
I think that's the evil. The evil one.
That's the evil one. Tefiti.
Tefiti, yeah. So she's like the goddess of nature. She's like represents Mother Nature, and she's got this little jewel that basically brings forth life to the world, and it's stolen by a demigod named Maui. And he takes it away, and it causes like a blight upon the world, and he ends up losing that gem and his magical hook that allows him to transform into different animals and stuff in a battle with Taka, which is like this big lava demon thing. And so that's the legend that drives the start of this story. So it's 1,000 years ago, and the result is now Moana and her people, they live on a small island in the Pacific. They're isolated. They don't venture beyond the island, and they got very strict rules about it. And they've maintained that tradition for generation upon generation. And Moana is going to be the next leader when the current one passes away, I guess. So she's been training for this her whole life. And like any kid, she wants to push the boundaries and she wants to explore the world, but her father keeps telling her that she can't. And so that becomes her conflict as she's growing up. She wants to move beyond the island and see the rest of the world, but she's not allowed to. And it's only when...
Her dad, it's worth noting that her dad lost his friend to the sea, didn't he? His friend drowned. So her dad is particularly
so he's not
overbearing.
Yes, but it's good because there's a reason why he feels that way. He's not just dogmatic. He's not just like, well, this is the tradition that was passed down to me, so I'm going to make you do it as well. He was once like Moana. He wanted to venture out into the world, and he tried it, and it didn't work, and he lost his friend in the process. So he's got a very real emotional reason to stop her because he doesn't want to lose her as well. So again, the movie gives it does a good job of fleshing out the motivations for each of the characters. There's a reason why each person feels and acts the way they do, and it's not just prejudice. There's an actual experience behind it, which again is just good writing.
They feel realistic, and what's interesting is that it's not a realistic story in any way, shape, or form. You know, it's a very mythical story, and it's even in the structure of the story. Like the ocean makes things happen, the ocean spirit. So you get the water blob sort of coming up and manipulating things. Like it's all contrivances and conveniences, but because of the kind of story that's being told, none of that seems to matter. You know, you don't feel that that's intruding on the progress of the plot or anything. Because it's not about that. It's about what the characters, like you say, you know, how authentic they feel and the motivations they have for doing what they're doing. And like you were saying, you know, she wants to escape, and it happens that she's given a reason because Maui 1,000 years ago had stolen the heart of Te Fiti, which is that jewel, and it was causing like a black rot to spread across the world. And so the fish nets aren't producing fish, and the coconuts are all like rotten or something, and like powdery, so they can't eat those. And so it's like, right, you know, and at one point Moana's like, you know, the father's like, oh, you can't go beyond the reef, and she's like, yeah, well, that was a rule when we had fish. And it's like, that's a very good point. You know, you don't have any fish now, you are going to have to go beyond that reef and figure out what the problem is. But yeah, so yeah, really like the setup, even though the way the story's told, even though it's a myth, you know, a big mythological hero story, you know, but that's not the point, is it?
Yeah. So she tries to leave initially on a boat and fails because the waves crash over a reef right at the edge of the island, and it capsizes her boat and almost kills her in the process. And she gets washed ashore. But it's when she meets with her grandmother, who's kind of like the village person, who she's down by the shore and stuff. And it's her who explains, like, look, there's, you know, your father was once like you, and you know, there's a thing I need to show you. And so she takes her to a cave where she finds all these giant boats that her people originally used to get to that island. And you find out that they were once a race of explorers, you know, so they didn't live on one specific island. I think they just kept moving from place to place because they were curious to see what was out there. And you find out that they stopped doing that because of this blight that was spreading. I think it caused, as she describes it, it caused monsters to rise up from the deep and attack them. So it became more and more dangerous to venture out. So they just decided, no, we're not doing this anymore. So they hid away their boats, and they established this culture of just staying on the island and staying safe. And so it then gives Moana almost like a boost to know that her people were once travelers who journeyed on the ocean. And it's when her grandmother also explains what she needs to do. She gives her quest. She has to journey out and find Maui, the demigod who stole this jewel in the first place, and get him to return across the ocean so that he can return it to its natural resting place. And that will end the blight, and it will restore life to her world. So that is like her epic quest that she has to go on.
Yeah, it's probably like Lord of the Rings epic as well. Look, the entire world's going to be destroyed if you don't do this. So you've got to go do it. So it's pretty epic. But yeah, the meeting of Maui when she crashes on his island is great. I think the whole thing is just really, really great because Maui is just an asshole. He's such a prick. Yeah. You know, it's like, thanks for everything, Maui. You twat. You know?
Yeah, because he's an interesting character, isn't he? Because I think the script implies that he's responsible for a lot of the discoveries of humanity. He discovered fire, he discovered agriculture and stuff, and he taught all of that to humankind. And that's his purpose almost. He finds knowledge and he gives it to humanity.
And so Prometheus of the story.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question then, because you ultimately find out he stole this jewel that's causing this blight. But did he really have the free will to do that, or was he just compelled to do it because he's a demigod and that's like his purpose? You don't quite know. So he's an interesting character.
If I were to put money on it, I would imagine it's probably Maui being self-centered. you know, because the point of him is he's a very self-centered character, and by the end of it, Moana has taught him to be less self-centered, which is nice. You know, it's an important lesson for people to learn. Don't be so selfish. Your actions have consequences.
Yeah.
But yeah, the interesting thing about Moana as a character is the only real sort of virtue that we see, or the particular skill that she has, is her agility. I was thinking about this the other day. Like the first time we see it is when she's on the island and she just jumps down from like the top of a hut or something, and then we see it when she's on the island with Maui and she climbs up out of the cave that he traps her in as he steals her boat, because what a dick. And then
he's happy to leave her in that cave the rest of her life, by the way. Like he's sailing away just happy as anything.
Yeah, it's a lovely cave, she'll enjoy herself in there. But yeah, and he kind of enchants her into it as well by singing this song and getting her all distracted, and then just boof, right, trapped in a cave. Bye, I'm taking it. So it's very, very malevolent, really, if you think about it. And it's only because she's so athletic that she manages to get her way out and climb through the sort of hole in the top. And so and if it wasn't for the ocean constantly putting her back on the boat, because Maui basically when she tries to get on the boat as Maui's sailing away, misses, hits the ocean and just falls in. But then the ocean dumps her on the boat, and Maui's just like, huh, and then just throws her into the ocean again. And the ocean dumps her on the boat, and he's like, no. And then eventually he's like, right, okay, clearly I can't get rid of you. And then they have to start talking and have a relationship. And this is what I mean about the sort of conveniences of the mythic plot. But yeah, but then they have to figure things out, don't they?
Yeah, and what's interesting is she can't physically overpower him. Yes. So she can't force him to do what she wants. And under normal circumstances, he could just throw her off the boat and sail away, and there'd be nothing she could do about it. But the ocean is helping her out in this instance, so that she keeps coming back onto it. And it's only persistence and her ability to argue with him that wins him over. Which is interesting, because you would normally get movies like this if this was made now. She would beat him up or something, and she would force him to do what she needs him to do. Whereas it recognizes, no, he's a demigod and he's like a million times stronger than she is. She can't force him to do anything. She has to somehow reason with him and eventually win him over, and that's what she does. And again, it's an important thing to note about the character is her persistence. Even when she's got physical limitations, she can somehow still prevail. Again, it's a good bit of writing, and it recognizes the difference between them.
Absolutely, and it's the reason that Maui starts to really take her seriously is because she doesn't back down to him being totally condescending to her as a mortal. She keeps addressing herself by her title to him, saying, "No, you are going to take me to Te Fiti so I can return the heart." And Maui's terrified of the heart because to him this is there's just a little gem, but he's like, "Oh God, this has caused me so much trouble." But when she eventually persuades him to go and do it, he's like, "Right, okay, well, we've got to go find my fish hook," and that's in the realm of monsters where Tomatoa, a giant crab, has obviously got it because he collects. Obviously he's got it. Obviously, why not a giant, gem encrusted crab would have the hook of Maui? Because it's it's a valuable item and it'd be a thing. And it turns out, lo and behold, it's true. But the climb up I found really interesting because Maui's just like, "What are you doing? You're not going to come and because what they've got to do is climb up this enormous hexagonal geological formation, and to get to the top where Maui does a dance to open the thing up and then jump down it into another back into the water in this huge, and it looks really high up thing, and he's just like, "A mortal's never going to do this, don't worry." And then she falls down and then drops into the realm of monsters, and he's like, "Well, she's dead," and then carries on. It's like, what a dick. This guy's such a dick.
Yeah, but, he's very much presented as just a self-absorbed asshole, yes. And he's very much in love with his own legend. I think it's amazing that he hasn't gone insane after being stuck on an island by himself for 1,000 years, but somehow he's okay. But yeah, it brings them into this realm of monsters where they spot the well, you don't even see this giant crab initially. It looks like just a mountain of treasure with his hook at the top of it. And so Maui's plan is like, okay, you go in and distract him, and then I'll steal the hook. And that's kind of what she does. And like the whole mountain of treasure is just like the shell of this crab that then rises up out the ground, and starts trying to attack them.
Yeah, and what's interesting between Maui and the crab is that they've fought before, because the crab's like this legendary creature. Mao being a legendary troublemaker, he's obviously gone and fought him before. And Maui pulled one of the crab's legs off. So the crab is not happy with Maui, and they obviously start fighting. And the thing is, the crab defeats Maui. The crab beats him and is trying to eat him until Moana actually saves Maui by painting a shell with bioluminescent green algae or something, making it look like the heart of Te Fiti. And so, distracts the crab, and they manage to escape, which is interesting, and is one of the, it's kind of the point at which Maui stops being such a dick and trying to get rid of her, because she's proven herself to have value. I'm actually a capable person who can think for myself and will take action when action is necessary, and that's a respectable quality.
Yeah, very much so. And she's not a demigod in that sense, so she is very easily killable. Whereas Maui, I guess, can take a lot more, and he's in less danger. So she's putting everything on the line for this guy to help him out so that she can fulfill her quest. So again, it makes her an interesting character willing to risk everything for her quest.
Well, yeah, but there's no choice though, is there?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like me or the world, basically.
Yeah.
But they do manage to get out of it. The crab is a weird one. He's kind of not even evil as such. He's just very self-absorbed almost. He just loves shiny things and glitter and stuff. He just likes collecting things. It's a funny antagonist.
I probably would call him evil though, because he is just going to eat her. So when he catches her, he's like, I'll sing you a song about myself, and then I'm going to eat you.
Yeah, he's got no qualms about killing innocent people. Put it that way.
But yeah, after they get out, what happens directly after they get out? I can't even remember off the top of my head now. You'd think I'd have had this memorized, wouldn't you?
Well, once they escape, I think Maui can't use his hook properly, because this thing allows him to transform into anything, like any animal. So he could become an eagle or, a whale or whatever, and it doesn't work for him properly. And so it's like he's lost the knack of using it. And I think that's when they get attacked by coconut pirates, which is really fucking weird.
Well, so no, but that's a really great, that's a really important point though, right? Maui, the whole film up until this point, from Maui's point of view. So people, if you're not familiar, Google Maui Moana so you can see a picture of him. He is a brick shithouse. He is the biggest man you've ever seen. He is arms like tree trunks. He's literally square in his body shape. He's so broad and strong, and he holds this kind of confidence of someone who is built like that. And so through the whole film, it's just nothing but self-confidence, self-confidence, self-confidence. Even when it's, fighting Tamatoa, the crab, he's still self-confident until he realizes he can't operate the hook properly because it's been too long since he last used it. And suddenly it's like a deflation of his personality. Because, suddenly it's weakness. He's vulnerable. He looks incompetent, and this is all new to him. And so Moana persuades him that he can learn to do it again. And, then they carry on. And like you say, they get attacked by these weird coconut things, which I don't really know what the point of that is, but...
It's a bonkers little scene, because it's they're like living coconuts that can that can attack you. Okay, fine.
Well, are they like small goblin creatures that wear coconuts, or what?
I think so. You can kind of see something behind the coconut, there's eyes and stuff there, but I have no idea what they are. I assume it's some kind of I imagine it's some kind of Polynesian legend or something. They're a thing.
Yeah, but the good thing about the scene is it allows Moana to show off her athletic skills and the fact that she's brave. Maui's doing most of the work fighting these things off, but they capture the heart of Te Fiti, take onto their boats, their massive boat, fortress boats, And Maui's just like, well, we're not gonna be able to get it. They'll just kill us, so we've got to go. And she jumps on and runs around, gets it back, and then athletically leaps off and arrives back on the boat. And Maui's impressed, and so there we go. Good job.
Yeah.
They managed to sink their boats by making them crash.
Yeah, they do. You kind of see them collapsing in the distance, like all this stuff just crumbling into the ocean. But yeah, it kind of proves her worth. But you also get like a kind of a scene with Maui where he explains his origins, because you find out that he was not born a demigod. He was born as a human, and his parents rejected and they abandoned him. And it was the gods who took pity on him and turned him into what he is now. And they gave him this mission to go through the world and discover knowledge that he can give to humanity and stuff. So it's almost like that becomes his purpose. That's what he's designed for. And he's trapped in that. It's an interesting kind of motivation for his...
Yeah, he defines himself by it. And sorry, go on.
No, you're exactly right. That's his whole view on the world, is like what he's managed to steal, the accomplishments he's managed to make like that. And that's how they appear as tattoos that they almost move across his body. And
that,
so he's kind of a weird...
Yeah, because like every one of his legendary accomplishments, I don't even think he tattoos them, does he? They appear on his body for him, don't they? By the gods or something.
Yeah.
And so these become like an inescapable record of his life. And there's one really great bit on the boat where, Moana's like, oh, we've got to go and return the heart. And he's like, well, have you ever defeated a lava demon? And she's just like, no, have you? And he's like, oh, damn it. Because he hasn't. He got beaten by the lava demon. So it's like, oof, got him. But it's this kind of interplay that makes their relationship really interesting, isn't it?
Well, they each have things that the other person needs. Like, she needs his cooperation to accomplish this mission. In a way, he kind of needs her to give him new purpose in life. And, they both learn things from each other over the course of the movie. You get this great scene where he teaches her how to navigate and sail and learn how to actually use a boat, because she can't really do any of that stuff. She's just flying by the seat of her pants with that. And you get kind of montage where she's actually learning how to do all of these things. She's learning skills that are important through hard work and determination. And again, an important thing for character development, where you show someone actually working at it to get better at what they do.
Take note, Star Wars writers. Just saying.
Yeah.
It's not even difficult. It's, in almost every Disney film ever, and yet you can't do this with your Mary Sues. I don't know why. Sorry, I'm so sick.
It's the easiest. Yeah, I'm much the same. But it's so easy with writing. You give a character a problem and you make it difficult for them to overcome that problem. Straight away, your audience empathizes with them. You kind of want them to succeed, unless they're like ridiculously evil or something. You want a character to do well, and so it's not difficult. It's like writers nowadays are afraid to put their characters through that, especially if their character's female, because they don't want to show them having weakness.
But ironically, that's so condescending, isn't it? Like, I can't even imagine why I would care about it. Like, if they were like, oh, well, we've made a male character who is a Gary Stew, or whatever the ER said the alternative is. Like, why would I care about a male character who never fails at anything and never has to accomplish anything, never learns anything, never it suffers or endures or shows the willpower to get through and forge ahead? Why would I care about that character? I would hate that character. Like, if I was a woman and they were like, hey, look at this woman who's representing you, I'd be like, she's awful. Thank you.
Well, and it's sorry, just give me 1 second here. So when you have characters like that, that go through these kind of struggles, the absence of it it leaves this kind of void in the narrative where you're waiting for something to happen, and it doesn't, and you're unsatisfied because you don't understand why you're meant to identify with this character. And it was the same with movies like Captain Marvel, where the character is just great at everything anyway, all throughout the film.
Yeah.
She just becomes more and more powerful as it goes on. And if nothing can challenge them, what are you rooting for here? There's no obstacle to overcome here.
Yeah, I just don't see what the connection with the character is supposed to be if they can't fail at all.
And I think characters like this, they used to be about teaching people, especially kids, when it's Disney movies. It taught them lessons about how they can approach life. And the lessons used to be that, you know, if you demonstrate traits like, you know, self-sacrifice, thinking of other people, determination, resilience, all of these important qualities, you know, they're probably going to serve you well in life generally. They're important things to have. But what we seem to be teaching people now is you're perfect the way you are. Just the world just needs to bend around you and to your will and just accept you as you are. And that's absolutely not how life works. And if people try and take those lessons and apply them to their day-to-day life, they are going to be seriously disappointed by what happens.
Yes. And interestingly, that's why Maui is such an unlikable guy at the beginning, because he's such a dick, because he thinks that, you know, he thinks everyone on Earth loves him. He thinks that he can do anything, go anywhere, and treat anyone the way he wants to treat them, which in the case of Moana is just trapping her in a cave. You know, he's exactly that character. Until Moana has, you know, as you said, the sort of persuasive experience with him, and eventually has to persuade him, look, you have to do something to earn the respect and love of people, so they'll call you a hero. You know, you have to go and do something, and fixing the problem you created might be a good one. That might be something, and it's fair, you know. Can't argue with that.
And it's the balance of this movie is interesting, right? Because there's not a specific antagonist as such. You know, even Takar, who you think is like this great evil that has to be overcome, you find out, obviously, later in the movie that she isn't. And the closest you really get to any kind of antagonist is Maui himself. But he isn't really. Like, he has a reason for doing the things he does. Like, he's compelled to do it. And he ends up expressing regret, and he makes amends for the things that he's done. So it's a funny sort of movie. And it kind of proves the point that you don't need an evil character as such in a film to make it work. You just need an obstacle of some sort to overcome. And the message of this movie ultimately is like, well, you know, like horrible things happening to people or taking things away from people can turn them into monsters, but they're not like that to begin with. They're kind of products of what they experience.
Yeah, there's no identifiable villain with like a malevolent desire to hurt everyone, you know, and that, like you said, that is really unusual, isn't it? You know, I mean, thinking especially in like Marvel terms, you know, where every villain is instantly identifiable. It gives us a remarkable depth because, like you say, like its circumstances are conspiring, and ultimately you can say it's Maui's fault, but Maui wasn't trying to destroy the world, you know, he wasn't trying to doom the world. He was being an inquisitive trickster god because that's what he was, you know, and he didn't have a choice but to be that because that's what the gods made of him. And so he had done something irresponsible, but he wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was just like, ooh, shiny gem, I'm gonna take it because I can. And so really it's kind of a lesson on selfishness and the effect that it has on other people. And like you say, that Tekar, the big lava monster, is not really the antagonist. It's kind of like the guardian of the island, you know, where they have to return the heart. But that's not someone who's actively trying to hurt people, you know?
I always took it as like almost some kind of parable for like Mother Nature, because that's what the goddess in this represents, is like nature, and the idea that you take too much from the environment around you, you harvest too many resources and you create too much destruction. What you're going to reap from that is destruction in return, and that's what Takar is. It's like a manifestation of that. You know, this big destructive monster of fire and lava and death. You know, that's what like your world can become if you take too much from it, and you don't have respect for it.
I think that's a great point. And one thing I noticed about it is it's not heavy-handed with that message either. Because I mean, that's a true statement. You know, everyone knows, look, who wants to live in a polluted world? I don't want to live in a polluted world. But I also don't really want to have anything to do with environmental activists because they're really embarrassing and cringe. And so it's like, right,
Yeah.
so but it's
can we just like can we just make Elon Musk like president of the universe or something and just he just fixed everything.
Yeah. I mean, on the plus side, like the Germans have just said, oh, maybe nuclear power isn't so bad. So there is hope. But like you are right with the heart and stuff. It is obviously about nature and how nature is a nice and good thing. And agreed, it is a nice and good thing, and we should be, we should not just pollute. I mean, it sounds remedial, but yeah, I mean that's fair. That's a fair message, and it's in the movie, so okay, fine. But it's like I said, it's not heavy-handed, so that's good. But yeah, the when they're actually approaching, so they're trying to return the heart, and they know where they have to go to do it, 'cause it's a particular island that's surrounded by another sort of chain of islands, and guarding this chain of islands is Tekar, and it's this giant lava monster that throws big balls of lava at the boat and things like this. And so Moana puts her skills that she's learned, the sailing skills that she learned, to use, and she learns them from Maui, of course. Maui, one of the embarrassing thing for her is, like you said, like she doesn't know how to sail. She's self-taught, she says, and so Maui's kind of like, oh, you pleb, but the ocean forces Maui to teach her. So he does, and then you see her put these skills into practice when she is approaching the sort of gap between the islands and the lava demon comes up. She has a feint and sails to the left and into some mist, and so the lava monster goes on. But in the meantime, she's actually turned around and sneaks back, and it's it's using the sailing skills she's learned, and it's all quite intense. And the lava demon's almost got her, and then Maui returns because she upset Maui slightly before this because Maui got his hook broken, didn't he?
Yeah, so it was damaged. They had a confrontation with Takara already, and he used the hook to protect them, but at the cost of almost destroying it. So it's hanging in there by a thread. One more hit will destroy it. And so this hook is like the most important thing in the world to him. Without that, he can't be who he is, and so he almost defines himself by it. So he's being asked to like sacrifice the most important thing to him in order to protect Moana. And so initially he doesn't want to do it, and he leaves. He casts doubt on her. He says that the ocean chose wrong when it chose you. And so it's a moment of crisis for her as a character, because she has self-doubt. Again, another hallmark of decent writing, where it's like you actually put her through emotional turmoil. She doubts herself. She doubts her place in all of this. Yeah. She doesn't think she can do it. Those are things any normal person would experience when they're put in a situation like this, because it's an incredibly challenging quest that she's been handed. And a normal person would just think, no, I can't do this. No way.
And that's a great point, and I shouldn't have skipped over it. Actually, I didn't mean to go ahead. But the point of the thought I might fail. I mean, I'm just thinking of all of the crap that Hollywood has put out for the last 5 years. At what point do any of those strong female characters feel like the thought goes through their head that I might fail? At no point does it look like Rey thinks that she won't just win. Every point, Rey does everything as if she knows what the outcome's going to be, and I really hate that. It's like totally takes me out of the narrative of the character if the character doesn't act like it's in any danger. Like, why do I care? The character doesn't care.
There's always with movies. There's always supposed to be that lowest point where the character has lost everything and they doubt themselves. They think that it's always lost and they want to give up, and they have to find some hidden reserve of strength or resilience or determination, whatever it might be, in order to pull themselves up and continue and ultimately win. But again, doing that requires the character to have vulnerability and to show weakness for a moment. It doesn't make the character weak, but it lets them show human emotions like we all experience. We all have setbacks, and it makes us doubt ourselves a little bit. But it's like they're not allowed to show that in characters nowadays. And so you end up with characters that are just bland. They don't go through a journey because they don't experience hardship and doubt and loss. Because they're scared.
Yeah, I mean, comparing them to Rey, like, I remember watching the Star Wars films, and just at no point thinking that Rey felt like she was in any danger. You know, at no point did I feel that Rey was like, "Oh God, I'm about to lose an arm" or something. You know, I mean, you probably know them better than me. Can you think of a single point in any of Rey's character on-screen appearances where she looks like she's in danger?
Not a single one. Well, maybe for a split second in the final movie, she's fighting Kylo Ren on the ruins of the Death Star, where there's like ocean waves crashing over them, and he beats her down a little bit, and it's like, holy shit, Kylo Ren's actually becoming a threat. What's this nonsense? And then Leia just dies and fades into a Force ghost, and he just has a moment of spazzing out, and then she just fucking knifes him right through the gut with her lightsaber.
That's right.
Like an absolute asshole. Because can't have her lose. That was the one and only moment where I thought, oh my god, they almost understand this idea. The villain has to be a threat, and then it's gone in a heartbeat. That's it. That's the only time.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like it should have been. You would have thought that at the beginning of Rey's journey, she would have been. I mean, like the first time she beats Kylo Ren in a fight, it's like, what the hell is going on? You know, this is awful writing, and this should have been saved for the very end. And instead, it seems that it's kind of like almost the other way around. You know, Kylo Ren's almost getting the better of her at the very end of it. So is this Kylo Ren's hero's journey? Is it? You know, because I mean, he wasn't the worst character in the world, I suppose. You know, but I didn't think he wasn't very sympathetic.
Yeah, in that first movie, I had this weird, naive notion of like, oh wow, they're going to do something really clever with this. Like they're going to have Kylo Ren ultimately become the hero, and Rey, who initially seems this virtuous, heroic character, is going to gradually turn to the dark side because she's too powerful. She's got too much given to her too early. I was so trusting and so young and naive at that point, and
I mean,
that was proven so wrong.
That sounds like a good story. I would have enjoyed that, you know, because a Fall from Grace story is a great story. You know, okay, Anakin Skywalker could have been done better, but it wasn't that bad, especially in comparison to what we've got now. You know, it would have been a good, at least something interesting to watch. But man, like the whole thing with Star Wars now, I'm just like, why are they bothering? Why does anyone bother? Like what? And then you see this sort of like NPCs in the cinemas, and they're like, oh wow, Star Wars, and I'm like. But what are you getting out of it? You know, is it literally the shiny swords that you're like? I don't understand the Star Wars fandom at all, man.
No, I mean, I go back to movies like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Even that lightsaber fight between Luke and Vader in that final movie, where Luke has been pushed, and it's when Vader threatens that he's going to turn Leia to the dark side, and when you see Luke break and just give into his absolute rage and fury and hatred, and just pummel Darth Vader to submission. Man, the emotional payoff there is so good because it's so earned, and you can't help get invested in something like that. It's just great writing. It's a culmination of 3 entire movies building up to this. It's really well done. Then you contrast that with Rey and Kylo just mindlessly swinging lightsabers at each other, and I don't even know what either one of them is for. They're just kind of there because the script says they need to have a lightsaber fight. There's nothing, no emotion whatsoever, and that's the difference.
Yeah, and then of course she wins, because of course she wins. Couldn't be anything else. You know, you knew that was going to happen.
Yeah,
but
imagine if he kicked her ass in Force Awakens. In the first movie, imagine if he beat her down and she just barely got out with her life. You would be thinking,
that's what
damn.
You'd expect.
Yeah, you would think, okay, he's a proper badass villain. He's a real antagonist. He's a real threat. She just barely made it out. I support her 100%. I hope she wins next time. It's just not hard. It's not hard to make people like a character, but they won't do it. Yeah,
it's really weird, isn't it? You know, but again, I just find it really patronizing. Because if it was aimed at me, I'd be like, I hate this character, and I hate you for thinking I'd like this character.
Yeah. It's like you're so simple-minded. Like, just show them win constantly, and they'll clap like mindless seals. That's all we need.
But it's amazing how Rey makes Kylo Ren the underdog. Like, how is the villain who controls an empire and an army the underdog when you two are fighting? It doesn't make any narrative sense at all to me.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's the problem. That's where ideology gets in the way of writing, storytelling, and then you end up with garbage like that doesn't work. It doesn't deliver the emotional payoffs that people expect because it can't. It's too constrained. It's like it's like going into a fight with Mike Tyson with both arms tied behind your back. You can't win.
Yeah. Yeah, the outcome is predefined and everyone knows it, and yet we're supposed to go through the motions anyway. So anyway, right, yeah. So they have a fight with Tekar, kind of. Maui comes back and saves her, and then she puts the heart back, or tries to, and then realizes that Tekar is actually Tafiti in some alternate form because she's lost the heart, and there's this kind of mystical understanding. The ocean parts, and then she goes and puts the heart back, and then end of a Disney movie. So, good stuff.
Yeah, lovely, like flower-filled ending. The goddess gets her heart back, turns back into an island, everything comes back to life, and Moana needs her people to become explorers again.
Yeah,
which is. It's just a nice culmination for the character, because what's interesting as well. Like every leader who becomes the new chief puts a flat stone on this pile at the top of a mountain, and so they pile up on top of each other. Each person does it, and the next person. The thing that she puts down is a shell, a thing that you can't put anything on top of because it'll fall off. Because it shows you like no one's coming back here. They are now moving beyond this island. They're going to become travelers again. And just little touches like that just make a smart movie that I just like it. It teaches you.
Sorry, one of the things is it's fulfilling the end of the hero's journey, isn't it? The hero comes back having solved the problem with the sort of mystical knowledge or whatever, and she imparts it to her people because the people are important. Like this is the anchor around which the entire story really kind of revolves and should revolve. And again, like millennials, go spend some time in the city, but go home eventually. Those people need your help, and that's what I think the message there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's finding that balance, I think, between the traditions that she's been taught as part of her culture, but also having that ability to look beyond it and look at the wider world and be ready to have that sense of adventure and openness to like new experiences, new adventures, new possibilities. Because damn man, like I think as a culture, as a species, we need that. We need new challenges. We need to broaden our horizons and look to like bigger things. And we don't have enough of it. We're too wrapped up in like talking about microaggressions and arguing about damn movies.
Well, I think the important thing is that the problem with like being obsessed with tradition is it becomes stultifying and you forget that the world is changing around you, and so you like Japan and America when the Japanese first encountered Europeans, they really didn't want to have anything to do with the Europeans, but the Europeans had cannons and essentially just forced the Japanese to deal and to trade with them. But it was because of the very, very like hyper traditional and structured, rigid view of the world that the Japanese managed to maintain on their islands that allowed them to do that. You couldn't do that when the world could reach you, but if you're on an island with a nice sea between you and any big problems like the Mongols or something, then you can evolve a culture that is quite rigid and traditional and doesn't look forward; it only looks backwards. But one of the things that I think, Moana is showing this quite well is that the world changes whether you like it or not, and eventually it will come and catch up with you. So you may as well be engaged with the world. Don't think that you can just retreat into tradition and then just sit there forever and nothing will go wrong, because it will.
Yeah, 100%. Like any culture is a living thing that changes and adapts. It's not something that you put in a museum case and preserve exactly as it is forever. It's literally just the way we do things around here. That culture is, and so that is subject to change as time goes on, and that's what the film kind of embraces. It's like we were once explorers. That was our culture. We became insulated. And and that served us well for a time. But it's now time to broaden out and become explorers again and take on the world. And it's a good message. You know, there's so many aspects of this film that I think are just good, wholesome, moral messages for people. You know, the ability to see beyond your limitations, to push the boundaries of what you can do, to work hard, to better yourself, to try harder at things. All those things are good. They're good for life. They'll serve you well. You know, that's what Disney movies used to do. They used to be so good at all of that stuff. And when they remember that on occasion, it's great to see. And it's nice to see that a movie like this, a relatively new one, still embraces it.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying just before we started, like I have a problem with millennial-made cartoons, is that they're laden in irony. You know, nothing is sincere. Everything is almost kind of embarrassed about the fact that they're making children's cartoons, and so they have to constantly either break the fourth wall or act like the characters are not in any danger, and so they can just be ironic and bored with whatever's happening around them and things like this. And I was thinking back to, because I've got a son, obviously, and I've watch a lot of cartoons with my kids, and I kind of hate them. I really kind of hate them. And I was thinking back to the cartoons that I watched as a kid, and none of them, like, if you think about like the old 90s X-Men cartoons and things like this, like, they're all very sincere. You know, they're all very